Hey everyone, well, Chevron scored another legal victory, this one a large one. But before I explain how they won the victory in brief, let me explain the history of Chevron in Ecuador. Chevron purchased Texaco and inherited a problem that was caused when Texaco partnered with the government of Ecuador and created something called TexPet in 1967. The pair were partnered in this way from 1967 to 1992. During that time, the share of ownership of TexPet with respect to Texaco decreased to the point where Texaco just owned 29% of TexPet. And by 1989, it was entirely operated by Petroecuador, the state-run oil company of Ecuador. When the agreement to release the assets was made between Ecuador and Texaco, it also included, if you will, a promise to clean up, which was to commence really as soon as possible. And that was done by 1998. That started. Texaco spent about $40 million to do that work. Chevron bought Texaco in 2001. So if you see a report that Chevron signed any document in 1993, that news report is completely wrong. Not the case at all. Ecuador's political system shifted to the point where President Rafael Correa was elected in 2006 and embarked upon an aggressive and massive operation of acquiring oil production. Really, the 21st century equivalent of a path of what is called import replacing that started back in the 70s, but intensified under President Correa, who believed that the state should own its oil production. To that end, in 2007, Occidental Petroleum was kicked out, and Ecuador took ownership of their oil production and even their luxury cars. Got into fistfights over them, but I digress. During that time, the problem that Chevron inherited came with disagreements regarding who was responsible for environmental cleanup. Petroecuador in the state of Ecuador has to this day never fully started on or significantly done its share of environmental cleanup work in Ecuador. That is a stated fact. Never. They've always tried to force the problem on Chevron, and to the point where they teamed up with a U.S. attorney, a trial lawyer by the name of Donziger, who saw an opportunity and filed suit in 1993, and with this idea of protecting the indigenous people. But along the way, Donziger said repeatedly that he fully expected a win in suing Chevron on behalf of the indigenous people of Ecuador to make him billionaire. He has stated that. In this gargantuan pursuit of giant money, Donziger has done everything from bribe judges to falsify documents to write decisions, legal decisions for the courts of Ecuador against Chevron. All of these activities found their way into court in 2013 in a celebrated case of Chevron versus Donziger, and Donziger lost. It was a RICO claim. RICO is Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations Act claim. Chevron was claiming that Donziger was operating basically a racketeer influence corrupt organization, and Judge Lewis Kaplan agreed. Donziger disagreed with Kaplan, openly attacked him, tried to get him removed from the bench, didn't do that, lost the case, filed for appeal, and this week it was announced he lost. And he lost because the appeals court said that a client, even if the client is, quote, innocent, cannot benefit from the gains of basically I'm using my words, not the court's words, crooked or inappropriately working attorney, someone who didn't do their job the way they should have done it in a fashion that didn't trigger a RICO Act violation. Okay. Donziger lost. But Donziger himself is pointing to an expected verdict from Canada, which, if Donziger wins, he believes the government of Canada will be able to go after Chevron assets in Canada, if there are any there. But the bottom line is that the so-called Ecuador court victory of $8.5 billion that was fraudulently obtained by Donziger cannot be and will not be honored in the United States. Something else, too. Donziger has blocked me. I have nothing but the greatest respect for Stephen Donziger. I don't agree with his tactics, and I don't agree with his argument, but he is to be commended for the approach and attempts that he has made to right a wrong as he sees it. As he sees it. He has really paved the way for activities of trial lawyers in the future. But those persons looking at the Donziger approach in law school have to be careful not to adopt tactics that are basically illegal. There are some who believe that Donziger should be disbarred and in jail. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I simply hold, and I have for several years, that Stephen Donziger could have not pursued this case, handled it in a different way, and come out looking even better. There's a lot more to this than I'm explaining in this small video, and I've talked about it in the past. But the bottom line is, this is not going away, but Stephen Donziger did lose a major case. Stay tuned.